This is a download from the BBC of the World Football Phone-In, which is broadcast as part of the Up All Night programme on 5 Live on Saturday mornings. Here's the latest edition.
Let me introduce you to our guest this morning. Tim Vickery, the Wikipedia, the Legendino as we call him, is in Brazil, in Rio, to answer any questions and comments you might have on South American football. Tim, good morning.
Very good morning. Just back from Belo Horizonte for the big one between Brazil and Argentina. I promised some fireworks. They didn't really come. So apologies to anyone who stayed up late on my behalf to watch the 0-0 draw.
Don't worry, you can tell us all about it in a moment or two. Andy Brassell is in France at the moment. In France or in Switzerland?
France.
Yeah, you've gone back to France, so the action in Switzerland's over for you then?
I was with the Portuguese team for the duration, and when they went home, I went home too.
Right. So that's why you're the Lion of Lyon. Any questions or comments you might have on European football for Andy as well? And we've got Gennardy Fyodorov, our Moscow correspondent, football-wise. Anything you want to know about Russian football? Gennardy, good morning.
Good morning.
Good to have you back. But before all of that, there was high drama in Vienna last night when Turkey and Croatia faced each other in the quarter-final. Have the two best teams made it through to the semi-finals, the Germans and the Turks, or did you wish the Portuguese and the Croatians made it through? Let's talk football. Tonight, of course, it's the Netherlands versus Russia in Basel. And Gennardy Fyodorov, I'm sure you've got a comment or two to make about that.
Oh, well, obviously, everybody probably expected the Dutch to be in the quarterfinals, and not many expected the Russians to be there. But, it was a big surprise. I mean, in Moscow as well. I mean, it was after they beat Sweden, it was a crazy night. I mean, everybody can. I was going home that same night from work, and it was real crazy. I mean, people were on the streets like almost winning the World Cup or the European Championship final, like dancing on the streets, and it was an incredible night.
Right, you haven't quite won yet. However, what do you think is going to? How do you think the game's going to pan out?
Oh, well, I mean, the quarterfinal against the Dutch?
Yes.
It's as far as the Russians are concerned, it's probably going to be an uphill battle. If Goose Hitting, Russia coach, before the Sweden match, he said the Russians were a big underdog. But if they were big underdogs against Sweden, I think they're big underdogs against the Dutch, obviously. Holland is probably one of the best teams, if not the best team in the tournament. And for Russia to beat them, I mean, they have to play even better than they played against Sweden. One key issue for them would be if they would be able to recover physically from the Sweden match, because they obviously had much less time to recover, and the Dutch. They rested most of their top players in the last match, so obviously they'd be probably fresher and for Russia.
Well, that's what we thought about the Portuguese versus the Germans, but it didn't end up that way.
Well, that's true, but again, Russia is a young team. I mean, inexperienced, but they kind of seems on the roll, and they found their game. And I have to say. For them, I mean, even reaching the quarterfinal, I mean, it was a major breakthrough. For 20 years, they couldn't do it in a major tournament. I mean, either World Cup or European Championships, just to kind of advance from the first round group, and finally they were able to do it. For them, it's a major achievement, and all they had to do is just to hire the right guy, to hire the right coach.
Okay, we want to talk about Russia versus Holland tonight as well. Pick up the phone and give us a call on 0500 909 693. The man who can answer your questions, certainly from a Russian perspective, is our man in Moscow, Gennardy Fyodorov. Any surprises so far for you, Andy Brassell?
I suppose Turkey have got to be a surprise. They were pretty poor in the first game, and they've recovered admirably since then. We've talked how it's been something that's a burgeoning characteristic of Turkish football, how they can finish games very strongly, and they've proved that again tonight. Going back to the Holland-Russia game, I really think that what we've seen in this tournament and what we're continuing to see is that recent performances are what it's all about. I think rest is nowhere near as important as momentum, as Portugal showed, as you pointed out, Damon. And Russia have got their tails up after that win against Sweden, like Gennardy said, that they weren't expected to do so, but they played some terrific attacking football in patches, very, very impressive, and they've got every chance going into the Holland game, I think.
Tim, tell us about the match you promised us would be a cracker any time you want to. But first of all, this text from Jeff in Lancashire. Do you think Ronaldinho will come to Manchester United to replace Ronaldo? If not, where do you think he'll go? And why does Anderson play more of an attacking role for Brazil, such as against Argentina, than he does for Manchester United?
Yeah, good news on Anderson is the knee injury that he picked up in the first half of that Argentina game proved not to be serious. So that's good news for Manchester United supporters. Well, the short answer on Anderson is that he left Brazil as an attacking midfielder who would work the flanks, either wide left or wide right and cutting across. And to the amazement of Brazilian coaches, Man United have transformed him, partly I think because of the injury to Paul Scholes last season, transformed him into a central midfielder who plays with much more defensive discipline and much more sacrifice than was the case when he was a player in Brazil. So he's a player who's changed his characteristics in European football, in English football. We'll have to see how that pans out in the long term. I think it could be very important for Brazil. What was the first part of the question?
The first part of the question is, where do you think Ronaldinho will go? Do you think he'll come to Manchester United?
Ronaldinho, he flew in. He jetted in to the game, to the Brazil-Argentina game Wednesday night. I didn't speak to him myself. But speaking to some of the journalists who had talked to him, he was saying that he's under contract for Barcelona. So Barcelona might well want to get rid of him, but they still have to pay him because he's under contract. So he's in no hurry whatsoever to decide anything. He said that the only concrete offer at the moment is from Manchester City. Now, I believe his agent is his brother, Assis, who was a bit of a child prodigy himself, whose career suffered from diving too soon. He took the money too soon. He jumped at the first big move, which was from Switzerland, and his career stalled totally as a result of making the wrong move. So my take on this, I think Assis is perhaps floating this interest from Manchester City to try and flush out other bids, because Ronaldinho is 28. This is absolutely peak time for him, and it's a crucial move for him. It's perhaps the key move of his career, and I would imagine that he'd certainly want to be playing for a club that's in the Champions League, which is obviously not the case at the moment with Manchester City. But he also said that he's very, very keen to play the Olympic tournament. Now, the Olympic tournament is going to be really important for Brazil this year. It's going to give them an opportunity to work on a number of things that are giving them problems at the moment. But if they can use it to recuperate Ronaldinho as well, and Ronaldinho can kind of put himself in the shop window during the course of the Olympic campaign, then that too could be a significant development.
As regular listeners to the World Football Phone-In will know, we all put on our Brazilian football shirts before the World Football Phone-In. And, of course, at the back of our Brazilian football shirts, we've got our Brazilian football names. I'm Adebayo, as everybody knows. The Legendinho is in Rio there, sometimes known as the Wikipedia, depending on which Brazilian team he's playing for at any one moment. We've got the Lion of Leon, of course, Andy Brassell, also known as the Top Brass. The only person who doesn't have a Brazilian football name is our Moscow correspondent Gennardy Fyodorov. So we're asking you again tonight to contribute with his proper Brazilian football shirt name. What should it be? We've got Gennardy Fyodorov in Moscow. Last time around, I think the Cossack was the most popular one. We think you can do better than that tonight. So a Brazilian football shirt name, please, for our man in Moscow, covering any questions or comments you might have on Russian football, or indeed European football, Gennardy Fyodorov. Some of our listeners have got Brazilian football shirt names of their own. The gent, as everybody knows, is Andrew in Blackheath. Good morning, Andrew.
Good morning, Dalton. Before I start, I'm delighted to hear from you that I've got a fan club of one. Apparently I overslept last week and didn't phone in. And apparently somebody sent in a message saying, "Where's the gent?" So
That's right.
Whoever that was, hello, my fan.
Well, yeah. Only one, you understand, but next time I'm sure you fall asleep, there'll be 2 or 3.
It'll grow. Now, Dotton, the usual little bit of domestic news for you about the enclave in SE7, the Brazilian enclave, of course, London SE7.
Oh, Charlton.
Okay. Now, when they were relegated a couple of seasons ago,
we try not to talk about that. Players. We try not to talk about that relegation on this program.
I'm sorry, but I'm coming to the point. They sold their best players like Darren Bent and Ramadal and Luke Young and so on, but they loaned out 2 players for the season.
And
another Bent, back. Marcus Bent,
and
they're coming back. Fay. They've gone back to them. They can't afford them on their wages. So what I thought, next time Sean is on, persuade LA Galaxy to sign these 2, then they'll be off Charlton's hands, you see.
I'll tell you what we should become, the Charlton should become a Russian team, because then we could
Charltonsky.
Charltonsky, because then we could have Mr. Abramovich sponsoring us as he does the Russian team. Any chance of that, Gennardy Fyodorov? Do you think he'd be interested in a South London Brazilian team?
Abramovich probably can afford, that and few others, but, I'm not sure if he'll be interested in.
Right.
I tried.
So, now I've got an interesting question I hope it's interesting for both the experts, that's Andy and the Legendino, and that is I've been watching avidly the European games, but also lots of the South American games, and lots of people have been saying how successful the combination of the 2 Spanish strikers is, Torres and Villa. But I watched Brazil against Paraguay. I thought there was just as successful a combination of strikers playing for Paraguay as Santa Cruz and Cabanas. So I want to ask Tim what he thinks of that. But also, Tim, some very strange results. Paraguay beat Brazil quite easily, 2-0. Then they played a 9 team out of 10, Bolivia, and get clobbered 4-2. Argentina, very luckily, score an equaliser in the 92nd minute against Ecuador, who are 8th, and so on. So, very strange results there. And quite right, how boring was Brazil against Argentina? I watched the whole game. Why on earth Argentina, Tim, didn't bring on Pato? There was absolutely no skill in their midfield. Why didn't Tevez play for Argentina? So lots of questions, but what about the 2 striking combinations? Which is the better one?
Well, I think Paraguay have 3 excellent strikers, in fact, and a few years ago they couldn't find a striker.
Yeah.
Now they've got a glut, and Santa Cruz works so well with the combinations. Cabanas is stocky little fella who's difficult to shake off the ball, and they've got another one, Nelson Haider, who plays in Germany, who also play. They played all 3. They played Brazil with 3 strikers. And Paraguay, they're sitting on top of there at the top of the World Cup qualification table. Some of the results you mentioned, I think the main thing to draw from this is just how competitive it is in South America. Any away game is always difficult. Now the likes of Venezuela, traditional whipping boys, Ecuador were traditional whipping boys and now gets to World Cups. Now they've grown. Any away game is difficult. There is nowhere that the likes of Brazil and Argentina can go and think before the game we're guaranteed 3 points here. It just doesn't happen. You mentioned the lack of skill in the Brazil midfield. This, I think, is absolutely crucial to their current problems. They developed a model. When they won the World Cup in 1994, they'd had some decades of confusion. They tried to copy the Dutch in 78. They tried to copy the Italians in 90. They came up with their own model, within their own 4-4-2 system, with the fullbacks flying forward and 2 central midfielders, Mauro Silva and Dunga, who would protect them. but they would also pass the ball out with quality. What they have now, and I know Gilberto Silva has his fans, I think he's the fact that he plods around the Brazilian midfield is a dreadful indictment of contemporary Brazilian football. The central midfield positions have increasingly been filled by players who can only defend and who can't attack. So who's the supply line for the fullbacks? The fullbacks aren't receiving the supply line that they used to have. I watched Brazilian training last week, and I was very struck by a training exercise that they did. They had all the players on the edge of the penalty area, the fullbacks out wide, and they played the ball alternately out to the flanks for the fullbacks to curl in quick running crosses behind the opposition defence, and then everyone else took it in turns in groups of two to go in and attack the ball. But the problem is, this situation just isn't happening in games because the midfield is so limited. They can't pass. Gilberto Silva can't pass 30, 40-yard diagonal balls to release the fullbacks. They can't work little midfield triangles to suck in the opposition and then change switch the play to the other flank and give the other fullback a run. So all of their problems, for me, Brazil's problems are in that central midfield zone where they're so laboured. Now, for me, the Olympics has become absolutely crucial to Brazil now because there are one or two good players who could come in and do a job. One of them is Anderson, who played and got injured against Argentina. I think he can come and do a central midfield job and get that ball being played out of defence with a bit more quality. Another is a guy called Hernanes, who plays for São Paulo in Brazil, who's attracting the attention of Barcelona, who passes very, very well off either foot. Looks a little bit like Pirlo of Italy, or I think is a terrific player. So there are, the Olympics is a time that Dunga has to get these players together and work with them and try and get a midfield that plays a little bit more and brings the fullbacks and brings the strikers into the game, because at the moment they're absolutely shocking. The quality of Brazil's football, it's just painful to watch. They've gone 3 games without scoring a goal, and you just can't see where a goal is going to come from. They've got by on just flashes of individual genius from one of their talents, but with Kaká injured, with Ronaldinho out of sorts, there haven't been enough flashes, and certainly the collective play from the midfield is just simply not good enough. So real problems there for Brazil, but the Olympics is an opportunity to try and work out those problems and move towards a more expansive style of play in the midfield.
Andrew, thanks for the call. Also, you've got another fan, Alistair, who's in Brighton, says, can I take fan number 2 for the Gen? I just love his questions every week. Stephen in Ilford, good morning.
Hi, good morning, Don. Yeah, sorry to bother you. It's a fantastic programme.
Please don't. You're not bothering us. Glad to have you on. Yeah, go ahead. Do you want to talk about the Turkey-Croatia game?
Absolutely. Yeah, fantastic. Right. And I've got no connections with Turkey in any degree whatsoever. But I can't think at the end of it of a manager that has the capability to rally players like this man has done.
Well, which man is that? The Turkish manager?
Yeah, he gathered them together. He got them in a group, before the beginning of extra time. He sat them all down. He got a plate out at the end of it because it was regarded. Graham Taylor, commentating on 5 Live, said he's getting a plate out and he's showing them this, that, and the other. And he put it on the turf and he was showing them this, that, and the other. This man, at the end of it, I'm not being funny. He gets them to work for him. And they worked physically for him. Everything at the end of it that they did. I mean, 2 or 3 players came off with what I consider, obviously, quite different injuries at the end of it, dead legs and stuff like that. He motivated them. They took that and they got it, and they won't let it go. They won't let it go whatsoever. They played to the last minute and they scored. Right. Then we go down to penalties. You've got an elderly, experienced goalkeeper. Every success, every player went to him, peated him up, tapped him, hugged him, this, that and the other. Right, the Croatian goalkeeper was left completely isolated. It was absolutely fantastic to watch.
Let's get a response from our pundits on this. Andy Brassell, first of all. Was it the Turkish manager that made the difference? Because, of course, the Croatian manager was not bad either. And was it the team spirit that did it in the end?
Fatih Terim makes makes an incredible difference to Turkey. He's hugely respected over a number of years. He was first a very important player for Turkey and the captain of the national team. Then, of course, when he qualified them for Euro 96, it was the first time they qualified for a major tournament in over 30 years. He's highly respected, and all his achievements in club football have been in Turkey as well. A few, a few sorties abroad to Italy that weren't so successful, but in Turkey his status is absolutely unquestionable. And I think that makes a big difference with the group he's got at the moment, because it's quite a young group. So he's in a better position to use that respect and command them, and as our caller's saying, just really get players to work as hard as they can for him. One might say a bit too much, because of course now they're accumulating a lot of suspensions. Arda, Tuncay, and if his appeal's unsuccessful, the goalkeeper Volkan will all miss the semi-final by the looks of it. But I think that's a big part of their success, certainly, and the fact that they keep going right until the end.
Well, they've already achieved a lot more than many other teams, a lot more than England have done in recent history, getting to the semi-finals. They've already done their bit in a kind of a way. But the point that Stephen Ilford was making, was that, look, at the final whistle, or just before extra time, this was the guy that got them all together, that he rallied his troops. I don't know if you saw the incidents he was talking about with the plate and everything like that. Do you think that made the difference, though, between Croatia winning and Turkey winning?
I'm sure it had some sort of an influence. I think that was a part of it, but I mean, they've not needed stoppages in the other games to motivate themselves and to finish strongly. So it's clearly something he's doing in training before the games, and it's clearly part of the mentality of the players as well.
And did you feel that the Croatian goalkeeper was isolated the way Stephen Ilford said?
I just think it's a difficult situation. I mean, it's hard to see how much more they could have had the stuffing knocked out of them. They looked pretty much done before the penalties were taken. I don't think you can start doling out blame individually. I think it's fair enough that all of them were pretty much in shock at what had happened.
I'll tell you what, we've had quite a response to the nicknames for you, Gennardy, because we've got quite a few here. Fyodorov, because we've got... we'll go on to those in just a minute, but just talking about managers, Yasin in Newcastle, who thinks that you should be called the Siberian Tiger, by the way, he says that congratulations to Gus Hiddink and his young team, having done a brilliant job against Greece and Sweden. They played eye-catching football and so on. Do you think that Gus Hiddink is making the difference for the Russian team too?
Absolutely. I mean, for over 10 years, I mean, in this country, people were debating. I mean, what can be done? I mean, to kind of spur the team on. I mean, in the major tournaments, even qualifying for a World Cup or European Championship, and it turned out to be just bring the right guy and see the difference. I mean, basically. To my view, I mean, he changed the mentality of the players, the mentality of the team. I mean, they used to play every time. I mean, there was a key game, an important game. They played scared. They were scared of themselves. They were scared of their opponents. The coaches were scared. I mean, the team and the whole atmosphere. Now, they just seems like very relaxed and very assured of themselves, and even now the opponents are scared of Russians. I mean, the Swedes kind of were. I feel like the comments they were making, and the coach of it, they feel that they was a bit scared of the Russians. I mean, because everybody said, "Oh, this is a dark horse." I mean, nobody knows what to expect for themselves. So I think that's, a major credit to Gus Hiddink. And
we've had several text messages asking about the future of. Is it Andrei Arshavin? How do you pronounce that surname?
Arshavin, yes.
Arshavin. Whether he's going to Everton, but also Tony in Doncaster wants to ask you about that. Tony?
Hello, morning, Dawson.
Hi, mate. Yeah, you're through to Gennardy. You want to ask about Arshavin?
Yes, hello. Morning, Gennardy.
Good morning.
Yeah, I just want to say I really enjoyed watching Russia, even against Spain. I thought you did very good. So my question is about Arshavin. I really rate him as a player. I don't get to see him that much, of course. But I've heard rumours from some Zenit fans on the internet. They said that personally himself, he says if he was going to leave Zenit, he would like to go and only play for Arsenal. I'm wondering, is that true? And could you ever see him playing in the Premiership? And would he do good in the Premiership?
Well, to begin with, to be honest, I mean, I only personally I met him once. It was a year ago when I was in St. Petersburg. I had a chance to talk to him. It was very briefly, but at least until this point, he was known to be a big Barcelona fan. I don't know if he kind of changed his mind, but what I've heard again in the Russian media, in the Russian press, and the rumors, he likes to play in the Premier League, whether it's going to be Arsenal or I don't know, Chelsea or some other team. I mean, we'll have to see. But I guess I also read in the papers that Arsenal, particularly Arsene Wenger, is very interested in him. So we'll just have to see if but obviously he has the skills to play in probably in the big league now. Sure.
Almost collapsed because I saw a text here and it said, "Is it true?" And let me just find this one for you. You'll see why I almost had a heart attack. It said, "Is it true that Barcelona is after Adebayo of Arsenal?" That's from Sam in Waterloo. But they spell Adebayo my way. So for a moment, I lost my mind. I forgot that I'm 48 years old, that Barcelona could possibly want me. Because in my day, I was not bad. In my day. It was a long time ago. That's the only thing. So please, if you're going to ask about Adebayo, the other bloke, please add the R at the end of the name so that I don't have palpitations like I just had. Anyway, Gennardy Fyodorov, our Moscow correspondent, is with us to take any questions and comments you might have on Russian football. We've got the top brass, the Lion of Leon, in Leon, to answer any questions you might have on European football, particularly the European Championships. We'll be talking about the match earlier on tonight, Turkey versus Croatia. We're looking ahead to Russia versus Holland as well. And of course, the Wikipedia that is the Legendino is in Rio to take any questions and comments you might have on South American footy as well. And Gennardy, let me just say that famous Swedish saying, a love child has many names, and we've been trying to get you a Brazilian football name. We've had quite a lot, actually. So enjoy these ones as I rattle through them. From Matthew in Birmingham.
I do.
The Cosa Nova. Matthew in Birmingham says, that's not a bad one, is it? The Cosa Nova. Marks out of 10 for that, Tim.
I like that. I think for the competition, it's all over Cosa Nova.
It's kind of variation of Kozak, yeah, well.
Yeah, very nice. And Andy, marks out of 10 for this one from James, who says the Russian Rhythm is a good Brazilian name for a Moscow correspondent.
I preferred the last one.
Yeah,
very classy.
Right, okay. Possible name for Gennardy. This is from Gazdalf on the Wirral. He says the Fast and the Fyodorov. Well, he's got another one. Can't stay as I'm Moscow. Or Rashanovsky. Oh, Rashanovsky. Apologies. Rashanovsky. Right, so, or Stelino from Nick in Essex. You don't want that, do you, Gennardy?
Oh, well, actually, they all look fine. So I'm enjoying it.
But you'll be pleased to know that I have put your name into the official Brazilian football name site. For those who want to know, it's www.minimalsworld, MINIMALSWORLD.net. You'll get your official Brazil name. And when I put it in, guess what came up? This is a good one. Tim, this is a good one, mate.
When I'm sure it's better than Tildo.
Yeah, it's much better than Tildo.
Who was it who gave you this toy? Who first put you on? They have an awful lot to
It's a brilliant website. But this is a good one. When you put in Gennardy Fyodorov, it comes up Fyodorincha. Now, you can't beat that. Fyodorincha.
Okay, yes. Well, I'll go for it.
Fyodorincha. Tim, Fyodorincha?
Yeah, no, I think it's good, yeah.
Andy, Fyodorincha?
Definitely better than Tildo.
Right, okay. Kosanova or Fyodorincha? I'll tell you what, let's turn it to our listeners. It's for you to choose Gennardy Fyodorov's football nickname, which he'll have forevermore, remember that. So it's something that he's going to have forever. What do you prefer, Fyodorincha or do you prefer Kosanova? The voice is over to you. The decision is yours. Text me and we'll decide tonight. But let's get back to the calls on 0500 909 693. We're talking football, of course. Gary in Belfast, good morning.
Hello, thanks for having me on. I have a question each for Andy and Tim, if that's okay.
Go ahead, Gary.
Okay, first of all to Andy. How do you feel Steve McLaren will get on as the new manager of FC Twente?
FC Twente?
Yeah.
It's quite a surprise, I suppose. I think it's an interesting appointment. The fact that we'll sort of see him in the Champions League, presuming they get through the qualifiers. I think I'm not sure how much he actually knows about Dutch football culture. That's what makes it such an interesting appointment, because I think English and Dutch football cultures and the way that players are developed, which is especially important at a club of that sort of size, is so different. I know McLaren's been around Europe and since he lost the England job, and has been looking at different sort of teams in different nations training, but you've got to wonder how he's really going to adapt. Of course, it would be great for him if they can get into the Champions League proper. They've lost a few players too. That's going to pose a problem from last year. He'll need to get to know the squad properly. So there's a potential for him to do something, but I think he's got a lot of work to do to really adapt and make a proper go of it.
Yeah, I can't believe they've appointed him, to be honest. I think that Twente, I think they've lots of good players. If you look, they're the most successful team in the Eredivisie after Ajax, PSV and Feyenoord. And I'm just happy as an outside supporter. I think it gives us a window, an opportunity to really get back to the top of the table, because I think if it's McLaren and Louis van Gaal, I know who I'm backing to come out on top.
That's fair enough, Gary. So do you think McLaren will manage to make it to the Champions League?
I think it depends on the draw, and I think it depends also on, I think Engelar's going to leave, Karim El-Ghamadi's going to Feyenoord, and Kufo might leave, the Swiss striker. I think the Swiss really missed in this tournament. Mm-hmm. Well, it depends how they go, because Fred Rutten, who was the previous manager, he did really well. He was unusual for a Dutch coach in that he was the manager and the director of football, and he did everything, whereas most Dutch teams have a separate director of football who manages the transfers. So I think he's a lot to live up to, and it'll be interesting to see if he can follow in the footsteps of Fred Rutten, who I think is going to take the Bundesliga by storm. So watch out, any fans of Schalke. I think you should be optimistic. Also a question for the Legendino, please.
Yeah, go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, Tim, what can you tell us about German Deniz? I think he's just gone to Napoli for £9 million. I know Louis van Gaal flew out to Argentina to watch him, but I think maybe he was too much money for us. So what can you tell us about him?
I wouldn't have bought him myself, Dennis. It wouldn't have been my choice. He's a big, burly centre-forward who suddenly, towards the second half of last year, Argentina has 2 championships a year, and in the second championship of last year, suddenly he hit a rich seam, and everything he was striking was going in. But I think it was a question of form rather than a question of class. Because he's never produced anything quite so spectacular, either before or since. And he got called up into the Argentina side, and to be honest, he came off the bench, in a World Cup qualifier, and I thought he just looked hopelessly out of his depth. I know the Argentina coach Basili says his power is reminiscent of Batistuta. For me, the gulf in class between the two is quite wide. Lots of Argentine centre forwards come to Europe. Not that many of them succeed, and certainly I think that Napoli, for example, that they have a much better player in Lavezzi, who's a darting, gnat-like striker who works the flanks very well. And perhaps there'll be a good combination with Lavezzi working the flanks and Dennis sticking to the penalty area. But he's not really when I look at him, I can't see anything really outstanding there. So he certainly wouldn't have been my choice.
Gary, thanks for the call. And Gennardy, what can you tell Greg, the taxi driver in Glasgow, about Dmitry Loskov? And he also wants to know whether Arshavin will be leaving St. Petersburg.
Oh, well, about Loskov, I think he's clearly on the way down. I mean, he's past his prime. Since he left Lokomotiv, he joined kind of Saturn, a bit of unheralded side, and he hasn't played much in the last, I think, last 6 months, at least this season in Russia, because of various injuries. And it was a big surprise when Gus Hiddink joined the Russian team. He was one of the first players to be kind of dropped or not called up anymore. And there was, at least in the Russian media, there were kind of voices that saying, well, why did he drop Loskov? But obviously the age caught up with him, and he's no longer the player he used to be. As far as Shavin, again, I mean, probably I would say at least he made it himself known before the European Championships that he's going to leave in the summer. And I think my feeling is, although obviously Zenit has all the money in the world, and he's already at least as far as the media reported that he's being paid. He's the highest paid player in Russia, and his salary is around I think 3 million euros. So whether for him to go and play abroad, it's not the question of money. It's just he wants to prove himself that he is a big game player again. I mean, he might join Arsenal. If Arsene Wenger, I guess maybe he wants him to kind of fit a void if Alexander Gleb, the playmaker, the Belarusian guy, leaves. Then he may just want to bring Arshavin and in his place. So we'll just have to wait and see.
And Andy in Falkirk wants to know, what are the chances of Pavlyuchenko going to Celtic, and how much would he cost?
Oh, well, I've just heard the latest rumor that it would be 10 million pounds, but there were also questions put to Spartak management, and Spartak said there were no official inquiry from Celtic or any other team for that matter, so they were just kind of they said, and the Spartak general manager said anyone at the club is for sale. It's just a matter of kind of the right price, and they're just waiting and see for any offers. There were also rumored for Pavlyuchenko playing in the Spanish Liga for. They were even naming Barcelona or Real, which is kind of maybe a bit unrealistic. But again, if he scores a couple goals against the Dutch, then who knows? Certainly, he's a type of player. I mean, he has the skills, and it's just it was always the question of his mind, kind of whether he's willing to work hard and kind of gonna be a consistent player. I mean, he certainly has the ability to be that type of scorer like Ruud Van Nistelrooy. So we'll just again have to see. But I mean, if Celtic are interested in him, I mean, they obviously will have to pay maybe even more than 10 million. So we'll just, again.
Peter in Manchester. Yeah, Peter in Manchester.
Hello, good evening.
I'm in.
Right. Firstly, Kosanova for the Russian guy, without a doubt.
Okay. Thanks for that.
I fell off the chair when I heard it. And secondly, for the South American guy, Tim, in a dentist chair a couple of weeks ago with the obligatory magazine on my knees so the other patients couldn't see him shaking, I read an article about a South American goalkeeper, couldn't pronounce his name, important match, and his family, his close family, had been kidnapped in order for him to throw, to let a goal in or to behave like a clown or something. Has Tim heard of this, and is it a common occurrence?
I haven't heard of this particular story, but the kidnapping of footballers' families has been quite a big industry in South America. But this particular story of the goalkeeper's family being threatened with kidnapping, no, I'm not aware of this one. I'll try and look it up for next week.
But they do get kidnapped.
Yeah, well, because it's the families of the footballers who get kidnapped.
Right.
Because you've got a situation in South America where the footballers are part of very few people who've crossed the line from the masses who are poor to the few who are earning huge amounts of money. And
right.
Lots of their family members are still back living in the old working-class neighborhoods, so they're accessible. Kidnapping is a difficult crime to get away with, but they reckon that the local police are not particularly strong. Go on, Pete.
And are they successful? Do they get paid, the kidnappers?
Yeah, lots of them have been successful. The police record is improving. I think that the police are gaining more expertise with this type of crime, and they've managed to foil a few and recapture the family member without a ransom being paid. But the most high-profile one, it was nearly 3 years ago now, when Robinho of Real Madrid, when his mother was kidnapped and she was held for something like 6 or 7 weeks. And a considerable ransom was paid on that occasion. This is one of the many factors that drive South American footballers across the Atlantic. And when they come, quite often they take their close family members with them, both to give them support, to help them bed into their new surroundings, and also to take their close family members out of danger, because the danger of kidnapping is real, and it's a horrible crime. But it's one. It wouldn't surprise me in the least if we have more instances. There's been one in Honduras recently with a fella playing in the Premiership. His brother, the fella at Birmingham, the Honduran at Birmingham, his brother been held hostage for a long time. I believe in that case, it's a little bit off my patch, but I believe in that case a ransom was paid and the brother still not released. So very worrying situations for his family.
Peter, thanks a lot for the call. Cleo, the book in Aldershot. Good morning.
Good morning, Don. Good morning, El Legendino. Good morning, Cossack. I thought 2 weeks ago I named him the Cossack, and Kossavino's well good. Wait. And for Lion of Leon. My question to Lion Leon, Andy, the demise of the French soccer football team. 10 years ago, I went to see the Reggae Boys versus Argentina in France, and it was a wonderful atmosphere out there. I went to Jimmy Cliff's reggae concert, and the French were all up for it, and they won it, of course, and they went on 2 years later to win Euro 2000. But the team's demise, and for El Legendino, yes, the Brazil-Argentina didn't live up to its name. In fact, Gilberto Silva's complained that Dunga was jeered, and they clapped to Messi. And Adriano's interview, you haven't said much about that. His new boss, Mourinho, apparently was in the stands. Can you comment on that?
Let's take the demise of France first. Let's enjoy that whilst we can.
I can hear the little chuckle in your voice, though, and I think there are two reasons for your joy. The first, I think, is the problem that France have had in following up that very successful period they had in winning the 1998 World Cup and 2000 European Championship. They found it hard to let go of the best players from that era. So I think Thuram, certainly, Makelele, possibly even Sagnol, have played on a bit too long, and I think there's a bit of a culture clash between that old generation of players who've been there and done it and the newer, more exciting players who should be taking centre stage and renewing the team. The other big problem, which will soon be a problem of the past, is the coach Romain Domenech, who has never really convinced the French public, has never really convinced a lot of the players, to be completely truthful. After what has been, frankly, a disastrous campaign, he will go, there's no doubt about that. A lot of criticism of him centres on what's perceived as his inability to take responsibility. This was no better underlined in the aftermath of the Italy game, the third group game, when he's been going out with a quite well-known TV presenter in France for a very long time, and he was asked to explain what had happened and how France had gone out, and he said this wasn't the time to talk about what had happened and why it had happened, but it was time to tell the people closest to him how much he loved them, and he proposed to to his girlfriend halfway through this interview live on television, which even by sometimes extraordinary, sometimes eccentric standards, was quite frankly extraordinary behaviour. Yeah. But that will soon be a thing of the past. There's a number of candidates lined up. Didier Deschamps is being mentioned quite heavily. Jean Tigana as well. Laurent Blanc, who is a good candidate but won't leave Bordeaux. So really it's between Deschamps and Tigana to take France over. And
are there a lot of younger stars lining up to take the place of the old-timers? Because what's his name? The guy with the Algerian name that played, the young guy that
Karim Benzema.
Oh, he was good, man. He was good, and I could see the next generation coming up. In him, I can see the next generation being as strong as the generation that won the World Cup.
Well, that's it. It's symbolic of what they call the 1987 generation. Samir Nasri as well, another player who was born in that year. Ben Arthur, who didn't make the squad. Jeremy Menez of Monaco, who's not been fit enough to make a real push for the squad. They're all the players that France can really look to the future with. But like I said, I think really the problem was with the experienced players really letting the side down. Benzema did a great job, but you would have thought he was one of the more experienced players in the squad the way he played. Certainly against Italy, and of course he didn't get the chance to do anything against the Netherlands. So I think there's hope going forward with that generation.
You've been listening to a download of the World Football Phone-In from Up All Night at BBC Radio 5 Live. You can put your questions live on Saturday mornings from 2:30am to 4am, or you can email us at upallnight@bbc.co.uk. That's upallnight, all one word, at bbc.co.uk.